Good morning, and thank you for joining INSA's Coffee and Conversation featuring Dr. Troy Meink. Before we begin, we'd like to share a video from today's sponsor, Lockheed Martin.
We've spent decades building and connecting the platforms you need to operate in every domain across air, land, sea, cyber, and space. We've created technologies that unite disparate and complex systems so you can sense, make sense, and act, protecting in the same moment you detect. Everything we do is in service of what you do and why you do it.
Now please welcome INSA President Suzanne Wilson Heckenberg.
Good morning and welcome to INSA's Coffee and Conversation. This morning we are pleased to welcome one of our community's top leaders to our program. But before we begin, just a couple housekeeping notes. If you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A box and feel free to identify both yourself and your organization. We are pleased to welcome members to the press on the call today, and this is a reminder that the program will be on the record and available for viewing later this week. And now it is my pleasure to introduce a long-standing friend of INSA, Maria Demery, Vice President and General Manager for Special Programs at Lockheed Martin and member of the INSA Board of Directors. Maria will introduce our speaker today. Maria, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Suzanne, and greetings from Denver, Colorado. We're out here still having our first cup of coffee, but we're very much looking forward to this coffee and conversation session today. Lockheed Martin has supported the intelligence community for decades, spanning all the way back to the Corona imaging satellites in the 60s. And as we fast forward to today, we really take great pride in providing new and advanced solutions to maintain America's national security edge. We're focused on mission and giving America's policymakers, analysts, warfighters, and homeland security specialists the critical information that they need to keep America safe and secure. And it's my honor today to introduce our speaker, Dr. Troy Meink. I had the privilege just last week to do a fireside chat with him, and he gave an incredibly powerful session. So I know you're in for some time well spent this morning. Dr. Meink, by way of his bio, is a native of South Dakota. He entered the Air Force and since then has had many years in service to the nation, including the DoD, the ODNI, and the NRO, working on critical satellite system acquisitions. Since 2020, Dr. Meink has provided overall day-to-day management of the NRO as its principal deputy director. In the time that I've been privileged to work with him, I've observed Dr. Meink to be deeply passionate about our critical missions in the national security arena. He's focused on championing innovative breakthroughs in the overhead satellite architecture and providing his workforce with the state-of-the-art tools, and he's truly a visionary. So Troy, thank you and welcome.
Thanks, Maria. I'm on my third cup of coffee, by the way, so I'm a little bit ahead of you this morning here in the NRO on the East Coast. And also thanks to you, Suzanne, for the opportunity to talk today. The NRO has been a big supporter of INSA, so we're happy to talk a little bit about what we're doing in space and really what we're doing for national security. The work we do here at the NRO is critical, and the events of the past weeks underscore the role our team, our technology, and our partners play, both our other governmental as well as our commercial partners. Right now, Russia is actively deploying tanks and troops and weaponry across Ukraine. Deanna Haynes noted that without the intelligence community, the world would have had very little, if any, warning about last week's invasion, particularly considering all the false information that's being spread. And the global leaders may not have had the chance to be as united as we are in speaking out against Putin's aggression and the need to hold him accountable. Secretary Blinken noted that the intelligence we shared was critical to diplomatic and public messaging, which helped galvanize a strong, unified international response and help prepare the Ukrainians to better defend themselves. And bipartisan leadership of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence said, the IC, and I'll quote, got it right. And I really think we did this time. I think we were all over this. And the safety and security of our nation, our citizens, and our allies is at stake here, and it's just critically important that we continue to get it right going forward. The vision of the NRO is really to see, hear, and sense it, and that's see, hear, and sense everything. For more than 60 years, we've built an amazing advantage in space, developing, acquiring, launching, and operating satellites that collect and deliver the best intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance data on the planet. For decades, we really strive for dominance in space, and it was largely unchallenged. Really, we pretty much had a free reign for really almost as long as I've been alive. That's not the case anymore. I'm sure we'll get questions related to that, but obviously there's challenges in how we're going to confront those things going forward, and how do we maintain our strategic advantage in our national security. We are investing in technology tomorrow. We're building diversity in our architecture in space and on the ground. We are managing data faster than ever, and we must continue to be more innovative and faster to maintain our intel advantage. And that's really, in the end, the most important thing is how do we maintain our intel advantage? Every day, around the clock and around the world, our vigilance is unwavering. Susan, I wanted to save as much time for questions as possible, so I'll turn it over to you, and I'm happy to get started.
Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate your joining us. I just wanted to let everyone know that Dr. Meink has a hard stop at 9:40, so we are going to be very efficient with our time. And Dr. Meink, the last time I saw you was late September at the William Oliver Baker Award dinner, I believe. And a lot has changed since then. Some things I think we could have all predicted, and other things that we haven't. In the remainder of 2022, what are some of the biggest challenges you and the organization are facing?
I think, again, I'll go back to the priority. The priority is maintain, the U.S. intel advantage. That is becoming more and more challenging, and it's critical that we address all aspects of what's required to maintain that advantage. I'm not a history major. My degrees are not in that, and I always have to be a little bit cautious when I start quoting and talking about history. But the U.S. right now is facing a global competition. Really, I would argue the likes of what we've never seen. We talk a lot about the weaponization of space of some of our adversaries are doing, and how we need to address that. But it's really broader than that. I think it's really the economic competition. One of the reasons why the U.S. has been dominant forever is we just had the economic and technology to stay ahead of everybody. And we need to continue doing that across the board, right? We need that strategic advantage, and that needs to flow all the way down through our national security endeavors. And again, it's probably from both a resource, intellectual capital focus. It's probably a competition greater than the U.S. has ever seen. It's really since almost its foundation. And a big push there is how do we be more innovative, right? It's really, to be quite honest, it's fairly simple the way I look at it. It's rate of change. Is our rate of change faster than our potential adversaries? If it is, we're golden. If it's not, that leadership we have will be slowly attrited. And that has been my focus, and my boss's focus. It's really been a focus really almost across the entire national security architecture, with some successes, some not so successful endeavors. But I think that is just critical. Again, it's simply we have to accelerate our rate of change to stay ahead of the adversary, and we need to address every single thing that impacts that, whether it's how we interact with oversight on the Hill, which, by the way, I think we have a phenomenal relationship with the Hill, probably better than we've ever had. They've been very flexible in working with us, but it's all the way from how we interact with the Hill to how we interact with our the commercial vendors and suppliers that we use, to how we manage the processes within the executive branch of the government to be more flexible and faster. and really how much risk we're willing to take. Right? How do you manage risk? And it's as many of you heard me say, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Some people like to come up with a very simple, okay, we're going to do this, and that's the buzzword for the day. It's not. There is no one-size-fit approach. You have to address every particular mission and threat in a different way, and that really goes to flexibility in how you approach the problem. So I could talk for hours just about some of the things we're doing there. I'm not going to, particularly in this environment, but I would argue that rate of change and everything we need to do to maintain a more rapid rate of change than anybody else, any of our competitors, is just critical, both from national security and, to be honest, from a U.S. economic dominance. So with that, I'll end.
Okay, well, INSA is returning to hosting some classified events in the coming months. So maybe we would have the opportunity to welcome you back in that type of environment so we can have some more in-depth conversations. But you mentioned the commercial sector and dependence and the value that they bring. Can you talk a little bit about some of the commercial satellite capabilities that are of greatest interest to NRO right now? And what are some of the collection gaps that you all are looking to fill?
A couple things. I think we are trying to be very open and flexible with the commercial providers. I think that is the most important thing. We the government, not the NRO per se, but we the government have always, to be quite honest, tried to leverage commercial, but oftentimes we put so many restrictions on how we go about doing that. That we end up inhibiting really the innovation and the benefits we can get from leveraging commercial, and essentially we almost turn it away from, so it's not even commercial anymore, right? So I think probably one of the biggest things we can do to better leverage commercial is to be really flexible. And again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Every commercial provider, whether it's a satellite builder or maybe a software company that has a new bit of analytics that we can employ to better look at the data, they're all in a different position from an economic or business case or cash flow perspective, right? And so we have to be very flexible in how we work and target a specific strategy for almost every single kind of activity or company that we might want to work with. Specific things, we just put out a BAA and awarded 5 radar contracts. That's a pretty new endeavor. There's not a lot of commercial radar in existence right now. The EO market's fairly mature and is growing. The radar market is, I think, obviously probably decades behind the EO market, to be quite honest. And we've tried to start some investments to help foster that, as well as start to utilize the capability that exists. But in the end, it's really to help try to grow that capability. So that's kind of our near-term look. We have the large EO contracting activity going on. We've tried to be flexible and open up to new providers. The commercial radar market, we're just kind of getting started on. I think we awarded those contracts in the last couple of months. And then going forward, we're going to be looking at additional phenomenologies and other capabilities that could be beneficial to some of the gaps we're trying to fill. Maria mentioned we had a discussion, I think it was last week, with a different forum, and one of the things I got from some of the industry partners at that meeting was, don't try to say the specific gaps you're trying to fill from a collection perspective, but it might be better to take more of an open approach where we're trying to capture the missions we're trying to address and maybe open it up for even more innovative ways versus just talking about, I want this phenomenology, I want radar, or I want hyperspectral, or I want whatever. Take a more of maybe a little bit more of a higher level strategic, okay, this is the mission, this is what we're trying to do, and let industry come in with a good idea. So I think that's one of the things we're going to look at as well. I think that was a great suggestion to really try to open it up and give more opportunity for the industry base to come in with more innovative ideas than we may have come up with on how to address some of these problems.
So in regard to this is the least technical but most difficult question I may ask you today, and I want to preface it with your answer is only good for the next 60 minutes. But I've talked to several folks in the private sector over the past few days at some of the live events that INSA has returned to hosting, and they've been talking about going into different organizations' buildings and what their protocols are. Do they need to wear masks? Are they socially distanced? Do they need to show a vaccine? What are, in the next hour, what are the guidelines there at NRO?
So the NRO is, we really try to follow the CDC guidance for the most part, right? And with the most recent CDC guidance and the given conditions that the majority of the locations NRO operates out of, we're in that low risk area, which essentially means no masking. And so that's where we are today. We just, I think it was the day before yesterday, we had eliminated the requirement for masks for the most part. Obviously, there are still conditions where we'll do masking, where social distancing is not possible and things like that. But for the most part, we've eliminated masks at the NRO. Yeah, I think one of the questions we always get asked is visitors, right? We are still limiting visitors into the NRO facilities, but that will probably evolve with time. It's kind of one step. Just eliminating the masks is a pretty big step. So we've done that, but I would expect, from a visitors and travel and other perspective, things will evolve over the coming weeks as we start to incorporate all the CDC guidance and the guidance we're getting from both the Department of Defense and the Office of Director of National Intelligence. But I had a lot of smiling faces walking around without masks on. Matter of fact, I can't hardly get up from a table where I'm not trying to figure out where I put my mask. Walk away and realize, okay, wait a minute, I don't have one today. But yeah, that's where we are today. But I fully expect it to evolve going forward.
Okay, so advice, keep a mask in your back pocket, but you may or may not need to wear it in the days ahead. So I think that's helpful as things open back up and people plan for visits with their public sector partners. I wanted to ask, and this would be very educational for me particularly, but the relationship currently between NRO and the U.S. Space Command, it's very important. Could you just speak briefly about the nature of that relationship and discuss NRO's strategy as far as Space Command goes?
You did.
Obviously, the group that makes up Space Force and Space Command, we're really primarily part of the Air Force originally, and now it's growing and evolving. We had a close partnership with the Air Force, and I think that partnership as Space Force has stood up and Space Command has stood up, really that increased focus, to be honest, on space and department. I think that relationship has grown even closer. We have great partners over the General Dix and General Raymond. It's been I think a real pleasure. Obviously, I've had an opportunity to work with General Raymond for probably over a decade now. So that relationship has been great, and we really appreciated it. Right? There's a lot of different areas we work in with them. A lot of it is from the protect and defend aspects of it, and we actually just signed out the protect and defend strategy with Space Force and Space Command, signed by the director and Commander Space Force, Commander Space Command. And that really kind of lays in kind of how we will operate together and how we will the roles and responsibilities, and also a big part of what we're doing is looking at how we're going to continue to evolve. The discussion we had earlier on being innovative and accelerating a rate of change, right? They have the same challenge, right? And how we work with them on defining what that future is and laying out those strategies is just going to be critically important. I have no complaints, right? I mean, I'll be honest. It's actually been smoother than I ever would have. Now, I'm not over there trying to stand up totally new organizations. I'm sure they may have a little bit different opinion on day-to-day challenges they have in standing up those new organizations. But from a relationship with those new organizations, I think it's been great. I've been very, very One of the things we do miss though is that some people we do have a tendency to concentrate on the interaction with Space Force and Space Command, and that's just critically important, right? But the rest of the DoD is I think the relationship with the rest of the DoD is really good right now as well. I'll be honest, I spend probably about half of my time interacting with the national security side of the house, and about half of my time with the military side, military intelligence side of the house, and that's probably split about half between DoD, Space Force, Space Command, and about half of that's within the Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy, working specific intelligence problems, right? And I think across the board that relationship is very, very good, and it's being put to the test with what's going on in Russia, Ukraine right now, and I think everybody's really stepping up to the challenge and figuring out how we disseminate and get data to people need it even quicker than we ever have in the past. So I'm actually pretty happy with the progress we've made.
Well, thank you for breaking that for us. I think that's a helpful description. So this is a self-serving INSA self-serving question, but we are kicking off a Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Council that will be a member-driven event driven by both public, private, and academic members. And we'll be doing a call for membership in the spring. And our vision is to have someone from every IC organization, a public sector representative, as part of that council. Would love to hear a little bit from you about what NRO is actively doing in relation to diversity and inclusion initiatives, as well as how that relates to your recruitment and retention efforts.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question. I think diversity and inclusion starts at leadership, right? The leadership has to be focused on it, and both Dr. Scalise, General Shipton, and I are big champions, very focused on inclusion and really respectful for the entire workplace. And it's diversity in thought, diversity in culture, diversity in background, diversity in experience, and really addressing the entire aspect of the challenge that we have. It's been a focus of the NRO for really since its foundation 60 years ago, and it's going to continue to be even more important going forward. Matter of fact, the hard stop I have in about 15-20 minutes is kicking off the NRO Women's History Month. Sue Gordon, the Honorable Susan Gordon, is coming in to speak, former PD&I, good friend of mine. She's been a real champion of diversity as well in women's rights within the IC for probably more years than she wants me to say. So I won't. So it's important. The NRO also has a number of, talk about kicking off a council. We have a number of employee resource groups that really span the entire gambit of diversity. I had to look at them, make sure I capture them all because there's a number of them, right? The African American Diversity Network, the Deaf Disability and Diversity Network, the Federal Women's Program, the LGBTA Inclusion for Everyone Program, the NRO Asian Pacific, the NRO Hispanic Advisory Group, and NRO Native American Group. All of those efforts help, highlight, the challenges and things we're doing wrong, right? And give us an opportunity to understand that and correct them and help again make it a more inclusive workforce. You mentioned recruiting. I mean, that's huge, right? In many cases, the way you have to increase the diversity of your workforce, you really almost have to start, at the ground floor, at the very entry level of the organization, and recruiting has been a huge part. Director Scalise coming from NASA, which had even a much larger recruiting challenge than ours because of the workforce. The size of the workforce he has put a real focus on that. We've doubled the number of recruiting events that we've gone to over the last couple of years, even in the face of COVID. We've been really upped our game there. Had 200 new employees last year, which is, large for the NRO. And we're trying to focus on 7 of those recruiting trips were historically Black universities, but really across the board, trying to focus on the diversity part of our organization. And I'll be honest, I'm somewhat selfish when it comes to this. You know, to address the global competitive challenge we have, we need every last person, you know, stepping in and given the opportunity to support that mission set, right? Otherwise, we will not be faster and better and stronger from an economic and other perspective than some of our potential adversaries, right? So it's just critically important, you know, that we open that up. Matter of fact, after the next meeting, you know, after I open up with Sue Gordon, I'm done for the day because I got to slip this in the conversation. You know, my daughter and I are headed to the Virginia State Robotics Competition, right? She's 16. There's 2 girls on the team. The rest of them are boys, but she's the captain, right? So you know, it's still not the total balance, women to men on the team, but it's better than it started. And you know, you're starting to see that change, I think, all the way down to the lower levels, and it's a STEM-related field, right? So you're starting to see that evolution even at the lower levels in the middle schools and high schools, and I think that's really where it has to start, right? And work it all the way through. But anyway, it's a big focus here. I probably meandered a little bit there, but it's a huge focus for the organization, and it's critical for the nation, to be quite honest.
Well, first off, we'll give Sue Gordon a pass for not tuning in today for today's webinar because she is probably en route to NRO this morning. And I think what you're doing with your daughter, hopefully she can serve as a role model to, you know, the younger women, young women in middle school and elementary school over time. And I think it's those small incremental role models that can make such a big difference. And then I look forward to reaching out to your ERG groups when we kick off our Jedi Council in the spring and seeing if we can get some folks engaged from NRO and the conversations that we'll be having to address some of the challenges that we have in the intelligence community. But I'm going to move on because we have about 12 minutes left to a couple of audience questions. Marcel Lettra, hello Marcel, with Lockheed Martin asks, what is one game-changing technology you see coming ahead that you are really excited about?
You know, Marcel and I just talked yesterday. You know, I think, you know, there's lots of different technologies that we're focused on. But you know, back to my comment about you know, rate of change, and anybody who works with me, I say this all the time because it's just that's the focus, right? You want to maintain your intel advantage, you got to be faster than everybody else. You know, it's how do we adopt, and there's always a buzzwords, AI, machine learning, cloud, all these kind of things, right? But to be quite honest, the very basic technology that's really enabled a lot of what we do is some of the digital technology, really the faster processors, I'm going to geek out a little bit, the basic chipsets and digital electronics that go into our spacecraft, right? I've gotten this question, you know, some of the different architectures we're looking at now, some of the smaller satellites that you see in the commercial and the DoD in the world with. Now, how come you didn't do this 10 years ago? Because it was impossible 10 years ago, right? A number of things have changed in the market, and a big part of it is the billions, many billions and billions of dollars that it's been on the microelectronics and the advances that have been made there. So how do we incorporate those really commercial state-of-the-art technologies into our systems is not easy, right? We always talk about you know, rocket science and bleeding edge of technology. It's actually not true, right? And most of the time, the digital electronics we're using are 2, 3, 4 generations behind what you would get in your cell phone, right? So how do we adopt that technology in a space, you know, radiation environment? How do we adopt that technology faster? And that goes to managing risk, going to managing how you're building your architectures out. That is, in my mind, one of the key technologies, and it's not a technology, it's kind of a technology group, but how we do that is probably one of the most important things for us being able to deliver capability. It just enables things that simply were not possible even 10 years ago, maybe in some cases even 5 years ago. You know, the processing power on your phone is more than all the compute power on satellites probably 10 years ago, right? So it's quite amazing, and how you incorporate that technology is just critical.
So I'm going to give you the opportunity to geek out a little more on some technology related questions from our attendees this morning. Robert Cardillo, chair of USGIF, good morning, Robert, asked, does NRO have a role to play in analytics derived from images?
You did.
How you doing, Robert? I think, it's not a hard line, right? We do stuff now. People call, what we do now with processing, 10 years ago would be called analytics, right? So I think, how you even define those things are changing, right? For the most part, that is not our job, right? It's our functional managers, NGA, NSA are doing the analytics side of the house. Our job is to process the data, infuse the data in a way that makes their job easier, right? I think how you define where that line is and what does that mean, right? When you talk about processing, infusing data, like I said, some people might argue some of that's analytics, but in the end, that's not our job. In the end, that's our job, is to do the processing and fusion of data in a way that makes not only the analysts at NGA and NSA's job easier, but the entire national military intelligence community's job easier, right? And I think that's evolving, right? What we're doing with analytics, what we're doing with processing right now, is in automation, right, across the board is changing the way we look at how we do intel analysis, right, across the board, both on the front end tasking and on the back end processing dissemination, right? It's really changing. Did I answer that right, Robert?
Well, we'll find out if he completes the survey today. So Chris Gates asked, how is NRO acquiring space domain awareness information to protect its assets? Does it defer the function to Space Force, or is it considering commercial augmentation in this area?
You did.
Yeah, that is really a Space Force, a Space Force mission, right? We support the Space Force in that with some activities, but in the end, they're the drivers. Now, I have seen some very interesting commercial-based SDA capabilities out there, but it's not primarily an NRO mission, right? It's really primarily a Space Force mission.
So Omar asks, what do you believe the greatest challenges are for integrating commercial ISR, with national systems?
You did.
I think the biggest challenge is kind of what I said before, is there's not a one size fits all, right? We can't go in all these commercial providers and say, this is a cybersecurity posture you're going to implement across your architecture. This is how we're going to give you tasking. This is how you're going to deliver product, right? If we go dictate all that across the entire commercial community, we're potentially we're going to break some of them, right? And or really sub-optimize the innovation and what they're trying to do. So I think that the biggest challenge is how do we work with the different providers in a way that optimizes their capability, but still allows us to get what we need, right? Just how you request tasking, right, or request collection from the different providers is dramatically different. How they process and disseminate data is dramatically different, right? So making sure that we have the flexibility to incorporate that into architecture is critical, and we put a lot of emphasis on that. Not trying to dictate exactly what they do, but trying to come up with ways to communicate with them in a kind of a standard way, so they understand how, if they want to work with us, how they can more easily lash up with what we're trying to do. Without totally changing their business case, right, and the way they want to operate. So I think that's getting back to the flexibility side of the house. You really have to be flexible. We can't dictate things to. We want to leverage a commercial market. We have to leverage a commercial market. We can't go in and be heavy-handed and change it all, right? That's just not the way. In the end, you end up ruining it, right, or you end up sub-optimizing it. So I think that's the biggest challenge we have.
So in regards to leveraging the commercial market, where is there an area for the small business community to play a part?
So we just put out some BAAs. I talked a little bit before about how we want to try to kind of open it up and how we ask the question to be more strategic mission versus a specific capability. We have the DIIs, directors. Basically, it's the ability for companies to come in, all sorts of, with almost even totally unclassified small companies to come in and get involved in solving NRO missions, intel missions. What we just did with the radar, the BAs for the radar, that same kind of thing we're going to be doing every year now, where we're going to be going out with kind of very broad looks for different kinds of capabilities. The first one out the door was radar, but we're going to be looking at other ones going forward. So you'll see on a regular basis every year, or even more often, the NRO will be going out with kind of these broad area announcements asking for offers to come in and talk about what they're doing now or what they might be doing in the future. I mean, that's a big part of it, is actually opening it up to, not just what you're doing right this minute, but also what are you trying to do even when you're very early in the in the business case, in the company development, right? Start that conversation earlier. Not that we're going to dictate what they do, but start that conversation earlier so we can understand what they're trying to do and let them know what we're trying to get, right? To help both sides of the equation, right? So you will see that regular cadence on the BAs. We have the DIIs, a lot of the different opportunities for commercial companies to get involved.
Great. So we have 10 minutes, and I'm going to ask one more question that our attendees provided, and then give you a moment just to share your closing thoughts before you head off to celebrate Women's History Month and then robotics competition. But actually, there are two questions about Zero Trust, one from Mark Sinkovich and one from Todd Baer. I'm going to try to combine the questions, but it's, what is your agency doing in regard to moving to Zero Trust architecture? And what is the best way for cybersecurity software vendors to engage with NRO to help you all get what you need to implement Zero Trust?
You did.
So I'm not going to dive into the specific things we're doing on our cyber security initiatives. I think it is a big focus in the NRO. The comm group here is the one who manages that for us. But it's a huge focus. I mean, just what you hear in the press today with what's going on with Russia, Ukraine. Russians have been very aggressive, right, in the cyber world, as even some of the non-state actors have been super aggressive, as we're all very well aware. So it's a big focus for us. I don't know how to, from the best way for a new commercial company with cyber tools. I'm not sure if we even do any DIIs related to cyber. That's a good question. Maybe we should be looking at that. Let me take that back for thought. I'm not sure if we actually do DIIs and other broad area announcements related to cybersecurity ideas, but let me take that back for thought. But it's a focus. It's a huge focus. We have a major investment strategy to make sure that our networks are protected, because otherwise, if they're not, you really can't do mission, right? So it's obviously a focus going forward.
So I'm getting behind the scenes. He's got 60 seconds. I think you're down to like 50 now. Just any closing remarks, and thanks again for taking the time to join us today.
So thank you, Susan. Thanks for the great questions. Obviously the entire space community is kind of at a pivotal moment, right? We've maintained a really unchallenged, and things have changed, and I think we're doing a great job, but obviously we're going to have to be continued vigilance and focus going forward, and to, as I go back to, maintain that intel advantage, because in the end, that's really what matters. As the world evolves, we must evolve too. Innovation is really a necessity. You're going to see that, and you're going to see me stomp that over and over and over again, whether it's in a classified form or unclassified form. innovation, rate of change is just critical. I think the NRO is doing a pretty good job, but we need to maintain close partnerships with commercial providers. We need to maintain close partnerships with the Hill, with the rest of the oversight, and with the larger user community if we want to be successful. That's why we like to, Chris and I both like to support discussions like this to try to get that message out. But it's definitely a team effort, team sport here. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit today, and I'm sure we'll have opportunities again in the future. Thank you.
Yes, we look forward to welcoming you back to some of our in-person programming in the coming months, and enjoy your day and move along to your next task. Thanks again. So I would just like to say thank you to Lockheed Martin for supporting today's program. Maria, we know you had a launch yesterday in Florida, and then joining us this morning was an early day for you. And thanks to all of you all for watching us online. Thank you for taking the time. When the webinar ends, there'll be a really short survey that pops up. Please take a few moments to complete it and let us know how we did. Also, let us know what speakers you want to hear from in the future. We really do take a look at that information and incorporate it into our programming. And then I just wanted to mention on Thursday, March 15th, we'll hold a virtual leadership luncheon with NGA Director Robert Sharp. As many of you know, he will be retiring soon, and we are pleased to hold this virtual celebration to honor his distinguished career. Former PDD&I Sue Gordon will moderate what promises to be a lively discussion. And then last week, we opened registration for our annual spring symposium. This year's event is called Making It Work, Big Data, AI, and Advanced Analytics. It will take place on April 11th in Arlington, Virginia. And the full-day program will examine the IC's AIM strategy, the role of the Pentagon's new Chief Digital and AI Officer, operationally AI, and the capabilities needed to make it all work. And on May 14th, we'll hold our annual William Oliver Baker Dinner, at which time we will award the first Secretary of Homeland Security, Governor Tom Ridge, with the Baker Award. Registration's open, details are on our website. And finally, not an event, but a reminder, last week we launched our Diversifying the DIB Small Business National Security Showcase. The June 14th and 15th virtual event will provide an opportunity for eligible small businesses to market their innovative national security technologies, applications, and services to procurement representatives from prime contractors across the IC. The deadline to apply is Thursday, March 31st, so please check out our website for application details. This concludes this morning's program. Again, please take a moment to complete our survey, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful day. Thanks again.